Can you hear me, Ruth?
I can.
You're live, Ruth.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. And Mac, if you would give the prayer, and then Estes, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a flag in the back of Mark there, so we do have a flag that we can pledge to. So Mac, if you will pray for us, and then we'll stand where you are and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's pray. Our Father and our God, we are so thankful to you for your many blessings. We thank you for allowing us to live in a country like this and to live in a place like East Ridge, Tennessee. We ask you to bless the meeting tonight, that we will do what needs to be done, and that everything will be beneficial for the city, and that it will honor you. We ask you to forgive us of our sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay, if we would stand and pledge allegiance. Estes, if you could start us, please.
I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag of the United States
United
of
States
America
of America. And
and to the republic
and to the
for which it
republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
liberty
justice
for
for all.
all.
Thank you. That was a little awkward, but you know, the way we have to do these things on this Zoom. Okay. Janet, if you could do the roll call for us.
Chairperson Brawley. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
What do I need to do?
There. Try that up there.
Chairperson Brawley,
Here.
Board Member City,
Here.
Board Member Cox,
Here, present.
Board Member Lance,
Here.
Board Member Penley,
here.
Board Member Ramey,
Here.
Board Member Tuggle.
Here.
Thank you. Did everyone get a copy of the minutes of the last two meetings, February 4th and May the 26th? I had Janet to send those out. And if you all have had a chance to review those minutes, do you have any questions or any changes or corrections to those minutes? Anybody? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve the minutes for the last two meetings.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now,
Hey, Ruth, 1 second. I'm sorry. Who made the motion?
Estes
Cox.
Estes made the motion.
and then Mac, second,
Max second. Thank you.
and it was unanimous. Okay, we need to elect a vice chairman. We do not have a vice chairman. Kelly was the vice chairman, and she resigned. So I need to get a nomination for a vice chairman from someone, whoever would like to do that, or if you have someone in mind that you would like to be the vice chairman.
Well, I'd nominate Mike.
I'm already the treasurer.
We can
Yeah,
be both.
I don't know if he can be both or not. Give me some mark.
I wouldn't want to be both.
Okay. Well, we can get to James City.
Yeah, let's nominate Miss City.
Okay. Do I have anyone else? Any other nominations? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve Mr. City as the vice chair?
So move.
Who was
Move.
that?
Move to approve him.
Estes.
You need a second.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, that was Estes that made the motion and Mac second. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All right, it was unanimous. Okay, the next on the agenda, we'll consider and take action on development agreement with Mvms Properties. Mark, would you like to go over that, please?
I will. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I
Yep.
am.
All right. This is a development in connection with a Pandora European motorcycle sports retail. The representative that is here today is Randall Abear. Randall, I will have him speak in just a second. I'm going to give just a quick synopsis and let Mr. Abear chime in to give you more of an information. This is currently going to be located at the address of 5337 Ringgold Road. This is the old East Ridge hardware store, and they're going to be relocating from Highway 58 over here to East Ridge. Mr. Abear, as I said, is here, and I'll ask Mr. Abear, could you give just sort of a summary for the board members here so they'll know what type of the operations and what you expect in connection with this development?
Sure, absolutely. Pandora's European Motorsports has actually been in business since about 2009, but we bought the original owners out back in 2016. And we represent basically European motorcycle brands. The brands that we represent are BMW motorcycles, Triumph, Ducati, KTM, Beta, and now also Gas, which we're working through all of the representation agreements even as we speak relative to that. We also, of course, service those bikes. We sell used bikes, although used business is not as large as new retail for us.
Mr. Aber, thank you. Mr. Aber and his group came to the city approximately about a month and a half ago when they first at least disclosed to us that their interest was coming to East Ridge. They've observed the development that's been coming into East Ridge, and they're very excited. They showed a strong commitment from the beginning that they want to move to East Ridge. They recognize that the growth is occurring and the economic development opportunities for the city as well as their business they liked, and so they are excited to come in. In connection with preparing for this, as we do with every case, members, we prepared an electronic spreadsheet to recognize or at least reflect the anticipated economic impact of this development. You should have received a projection worksheet for Pandora, and if you didn't, do I have a show of hands of anyone that did not receive a copy of the electronic spreadsheet? I can email it while we're on this call right now. Okay. All right. All right. So this, as we go through, there's three components that the city looks at from a generic standpoint to determine the economic impact: property taxes, local option, and then the border region. We have currently this property located at 5337 collects $6,000 from the city, or generates $6,000 for the city on annual property taxes for the city properties. Specifically, it's a $6,110.30 annually that the city collects from this property. The estimated appraised value, once total build out is completed by the developers, we have estimated at $2 million. Mr. Abear, you think is that a conservative amount, would you think?
I believe that it is.
Okay. Their cost, so I mean, their acquisition cost alone is $1.5 million. They're going to put another $1.5 million in the build out. They're going to put fixtures, personal property in there, roughly of around $250,000. So just based upon that alone, you're looking at around a $2.3 million, a $3.2 million investment right there that will all be considered in connection with the appraised value. So I like to phase it down just so we can get a conservative number. We anticipate it will be appraised for more than $2 million, but let's use that number, and it's commercial property, and so it gets appraised at 40%. of its assessed value. And annually, it will bring in $10,704.80 expected to on property taxes. So we have a delta there, an increase of around, give or take, $4,000, $4,500 a year increase on the property taxes. The local option will, the projected sales, if you look on the middle section of your handout, there's a tab at the bottom called projected annual sales. As we do with every developer, we ask them to provide reasonable expected sales. In this case, they have provided over the next 10 or 20-year period from 2021 to 2042, that 20-year period, they anticipate sales to start at around 3.5 million with a growth. Mr. Abear, did you all kind of calculate a 2.5% growth? What you all calculate?
I believe that was correct. And I think actually what we did was about 3, but I won't swear to that off the top of my head. It's been a while since I looked at that, but I think that was correct.
All right, so roughly around a 3% increase annually, with annual sales starting at 3.5 million. Their anticipated total sales, average sales over the 21-year period, they anticipate to be Tennessee sales 4.8 million. And so what I do, members, is I take that average, the 10-year, the 15 and 21-year average, and I take the average taxable sales and I multiply that by the local option amount, which is 1.125. That's the city percentage. The overall is 2.25, but the school portion is half that. The city does not get that. So I only reflect the city's portion of the local option. It's anticipated that annually, this property will generate around $40 to $45 to $50,000 annually in local option. The numbers in your spreadsheet there are reflected in column E, lines 14 through 17. The aggregate amount of local option anticipated to be generated over the 20 years is $1.134 million. And again, that's based upon projected sales starting at 3.5 million and growing just under 3% annually until the sunset of this statute, which is 2042. So again, this is what the city will realize. This is not the board or region portion. So the city will realize anticipated revenue of $1.134 million plus the additional property taxes, which you can see on cell H7. The anticipated property taxes overall, they're going to increase around $110,000 over the life of this for 20 years. So right now, just sitting here today, we're looking somewhere around a $1.23 million economic impact. Moving down, the third component that we always look at is the border region impact. And based again off the projected annual revenues of this development, it's anticipated that the average sale over 21 years is going to be $4.8 million. We've got the respective averages of the first year, the 10-year, the 15, and the 21. Again, I'm looking at rows 22 through 25. Some of the members here are new, and so I will quickly go over. The border region is state sales tax only. It has nothing to do with local option or property taxes. The state sales tax is 7%. Under the state constitution, there's 1.5 of that is dedicated to education. And under the state constitution, no statute may encroach upon funds allocated for education. And so you take the 7% for sales tax that's generated on every retail sale, that 7%, you need to back out 1.5%, which is the education, which leaves you at 5.5%. Under the border region statute, 75% of that 5.5 is returned back to the city. And 75% of 5.5 comes out to 4.125%. So if you're talking just straight from a multiplier, you can take the retail sales and multiply it by 4.125%, and that will give you what the anticipated border region revenue will be generated. In this situation, again, we're still at line 22 through line 25, and the average sales that we have generated or that are projected are the first year 3.5, so that will generate $115,000 of border region the first year. Skip down, you got the average over 10 years, the average over 15, and the average over 21. It is anticipated that if sales stay as they anticipate, that the average annual border region dollars collected annually will be roughly $168,000. That's identified in cell E, as in Elliott E 25. If you multiply that over the life of 20 years, again, it sunsets in 2042, then the anticipated border region sales taxes generated from this operation is anticipated to be $3.53 million for the 20 years. When the representatives for the Pandora Motorsports came and met with the city, they provided these numbers. And the city finance director, together with her team, the city manager, they run the analysis. They know how much the city has been indebted in connection with the border region. They know what their bond obligations are. And as the city has grown as a result of the border region, the expenses have grown as well. And so the city is trying to strike a balance between how much to allocate to the developer and how much to allocate to the city to help pay the debt service on various bonds that have been undertaken for infrastructural improvements throughout the city. Just by way of refreshing your all's recollection, those improvements are the road in Camp Jordan, the Camp Jordan upgrades, the interpass, or the
interchange project.
Yeah, the interchange project, the multimodal project. Those are some of the expenses that the city has incurred. They've incurred additional manpower. They've hired more policemen. They've hired more firemen. Those are just some of the costs associated with the increase of use or the economic impact that we've seen from the border region. So going back to, I'm still staying in cell F25. The question is, what kind of a balance does the city want to strike between the developer and the city? And that number has come out to be a 65% allocation for the developer, 35% for the city. If you look down in that bottom box, and I'm now on line 37 of the spreadsheet. If you look at the box there, we know that the total border region amount is 3.5 million over 21 years. What I have done in this spreadsheet is allocated out based upon the percentages what each, the city and the developer will receive from the border region amount. If you look at year one, the developer, assuming it produces at the revenue that it believes it's going to, it will generate for the developer just under $75,000 return on border region. The city will get 40,000 of that. The left-hand column, which is in column B as in boy, B39, is the total the city will realize, which includes the property taxes from year one, the local options from year one, as well as the $40,276 of border region that the city will realize. If you play this out over 21 years, then the projected return for developer, the developer is going to receive roughly $2.3 million return. The city would get a $1.2 million return on the border region, a total return of $2.5 million. So we strike close to a balance there between the developer and the city. The way the city tries to look at it is not from a how much is the developer going to get overall. They try to look at it under the border region purpose, which is to assist in reimbursing the costs of the developer for its investment into East Ridge. In this case, the developer has expenses projected to be $3.4 million. Those expenses include site acquisition, construction, clear out, and architectural engineering, new equipment, fixtures, as well as their interest carrying cost on the loan. All of those are reimbursable costs under the Board of Region Act. And so that total from the developer came out to $3.4 million. So if you take the percentage of the investment, the 3.4 million, and you put that as the denominator, and you look at what their return on the 65%, their anticipated return is 1.7 million. So when you do, I'm sorry, look at it wrong, 2.3 million. So when you do 2.3 million divided by the 3.4, you get a percentage of around 67%. So the developer in this case is going to get approximately a 67% return on its investment in East Ridge. And that is what the purpose of the Board of Region Act is, which is to incentivize developers that might not otherwise come to East Ridge to locate here and to help generate and stimulate the economy of this community. So again, this case, the offering is the city determined 65% for the developer, 35% for the city. So if you vote tonight, that is what the city staff and its this finance committee came up with.
And which still allows, like Mark said, the 67.4% return on the project.
Any of the members have questions over that? I know it's a lot to take in at one time, but any questions from the members?
I have a question. How many employees are you anticipating hiring?
We expect that we'll have approximately 30 people working there.
Okay. And do you, when do you expect to begin construction?
We're hopeful that we will begin by December 1st. I think everybody's aware that we have a tenant there that we're trying to work through some issues in that facility in order to relocate that tenant. That has a national presence, so it's a little complicated and convoluted working with them, but we are well on the road to getting that handled. And while I can start some demo before they move out, there's not a lot that I can do. And right now, that projected move out date is December 1st.
Okay. Are you planning on bulldozing it down, or are you just gonna redo what's there?
No, we're going to redo what is there. We are not going to bulldoze it down. It's actually a really good facility. Right now, of course, it is divvied up. It's parceled up into 4 pieces, and we'll be consolidating it all into a single piece. But the structure is actually, that's part of the attractiveness to us, is that the way it is built is actually very useful for us to have a completely open space.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
So the complete building will be used for the project?
Yes, that is what we intend to do.
Okay. Do you folks own that building now?
No, we do not.
But you're going to purchase it?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
You're not gonna sell any Indian motorcycles over, are you?
We don't have the Indian franchise. The Indian franchise is up on 153.
Speaking as somebody kind of familiar with these matters, I would say that their projections seem absolutely realistic, maybe a bit conservative. I think it's a great project for them.
We're really excited about it.
One other thing I need to add, and I apologize for failing. There is a baseline on this property. There is a $30,000, I think, was that right, Mr. Aber? I think approximately $30,000 on the baseline.
That is my recollection, yes.
Yeah. So actually, what I need to do, and I haven't reflected in this spreadsheet, and I can update this for the developer, but there will have to be the calculated reduction of the 30,000. For those members that may not know, when the Board of Region was certified in 2012, the Board of Region dollars only represent the amount of tax revenue generated above a certain baseline. Under the Board of Region, that baseline was set in 2012. Whatever that property was generating in 2012, the city has treated it as that being the baseline for that property. In this case, there is a baseline in this property, and it's $30,000 a year. So that's each year, the developer will get the Board of Region offset by the baseline that's attached to that property. The reason that the state did that is, one, they didn't want to lose they wanted to capture the existing taxes that were already being generated, but it's the incremental tax that occurs as a result of the developments in the Board of Region district. And the reason that the city has always treated the baselines attached to those properties is because generally those properties are ones producing. It's why you see ones near the interstate, they've got baselines because those were always the ones operating. Some developers don't have it. I don't know which ones, but this one does have the baseline in there. So that would have to be factored in there. I can factor that here shortly and get an answer, just an updated one for you. But I did want to make sure that the board was aware that there is a baseline of 30,000, and I'll reflect that in the spreadsheet.
Mr. Litchford, does that offset the portion that's reimbursed to the developer, or is that off the top before the split?
It is off the top of before the split. So you take whatever so in this case, if you go to sell, say 22F, we know in year one, if they sell at the $3.5 million, they're going to generate $115,000. We will then subtract 30,000 from that and then do the split. So it's not, the developer doesn't lose the full, they're not paying the full, it's allocated according to the percentages. Great question.
The flip side to that, and you correct me if I'm misunderstanding, is dollar for dollar, what is coming off of my share is going to the city's share. So this will actually increase the city's return and reduce mine as a result.
What that does, it won't necessarily increase the cities per se. What it will do is it at least is absorbed by the baseline of that property that was generated.
So the city is made whole.
Right. Yeah, the city has to reach that baseline before the first.
So the state keeps that.
Correct. Yes.
Got it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion from the board to take action?
Whoops, sorry about that. Motion to approve.
Okay, that was Casey. Okay, do I have a second?
Ruth, are we approving the development agreement or the resolution or both?
The agreement and the resolution, I suppose, right?
Right. What we'll be doing here is voting to approve the development agreement as proposed with an allocation of 65% to the developer, 35% to the city.
Right, okay.
Okay, I have a motion by Casey. Do I have a second?
Have a second.
Okay, Lee has seconded. Okay, can I get a roll call on this?
Yes, ma'am. Board Member City,
Yes.
Board Member Cox,
Yes?
Board Member Lance,
Yes.
Board Member Penley,
Yes.
Board Member Ramey. Yes.
Your mute's on.
Board Member Tuggle,
Yes.
Chairperson Brawley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next on the agenda is to consider and take action on development agreement with Emerson Russell Trust. Mark, do you want to review that and then let Emerson talk about it?
I'll kind of go over that, and then I'll let Mr. Russell take it over from there, so he can identify what the development is, what he anticipates being operating from there. And this is a property located at 6511. It is currently vacant property. It's up there near the Waffle House. This is anticipated to be an 8,000 square foot restaurant, 2-story with a patio. And Mr. Russell can give a little bit more details. This would be, as I understand it, completed in the year 2021. So he hopes to be open and operating by July 1st, 2021. Mr. Russell, do you want to provide more details in connection with this development?
And this property has a 0 baseline.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you all for setting this meeting up. And I had back surgery a couple of weeks ago, so doing this on video helps me a lot, and I appreciate it. But I'm putting in Portofino's restaurant. It'll be a 2-story restaurant. Have a patio seating out front of about 25 feet, all the way out to the sidewalk, uncovered patio area. On the second floor, it will have a covered patio area of 25 foot long by 40 foot wide, overlooking the potentially see the stadium lights from there. They wouldn't be able to see the stadium, but when it's going on the weekends, I'll be able to see that. And you know, I think it'll be a real good operation and have an elevator in it, have a bar upstairs, a full bar, entertainment area, etc. upstairs, and be Portofino's restaurant, which is right there at the corner of Mac Smith and Ringo Road at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. So this is, currently the Portofino's operates, I think, just a lot or two over, so it'll not be moving too far. We've run the same analysis, and you all should have received a copy of this spreadsheet as well. I will go over this spreadsheet so that I can at least show you what the projected revenues were, or I should say are, for this development. Again, we'll start with the property taxes. This land right now is, it is vacant land. It is generating right now $1,285.11 in annual taxes. If you played that out over the next 20 years, that's a total of just under $27,000, and that amount is reflected in E7. With the new development, it's anticipated that the appraised value of this development will be a $1.5 million improvement. And so if you do the appraised value at the commercial rate of 40% of the assessed value, the property taxes will go to just over $8,000 a year. That's in cell H3. Play that out over 20 years, and the anticipated property taxes are estimated at $168,600 for a difference of around $139,000 difference in the gain over the 30 years or over the 20 years. With respect to the local option is, we asked Mr. Russell for what the anticipated sales are for this development. His numbers he provided they were anticipating annual sales of year one being $2.5 million, with around, give or take, a 2.5% growth. And so I have provided the average for year 1, year 10, year 15, and year 20 or 21 for this development. You can see there in line D14, the first year, since if it generates 2.5 million in sales, we know that the city's portion of the local option at 1.125% will generate $28,125. Using the annual sales and projecting them out until 2042, it's anticipated that the local option sales will generate $725,155 in local option sales tax for the next 21 years until 2042. The last category is the border region. And again, we still stay with the average annual sales. If you've got your spreadsheet open, that's in the second tab there. The projected annual revenues, there's a spreadsheet there provided for you. And it goes through each annual year, starting with 2.5 million in fiscal year 21-22, going through 2041-2042. The total, or I should say the average sales over 21 years is anticipated to be just over $3 million. And I will use that number for the 10, 15, and 20 year 21 to provide a projection of what I anticipate the border region revenue to be generated. As Mr. Custer said, there's no baseline on this property. It's vacant land. Going back to the main spreadsheet, I'll be reading from lines 22 through 25, which is the border region sales tax area. In this case, at the first year, at $2.5 million in annual sales, at a border region tax rate of 4.125%, this would generate $103,125 in annual border region taxes. If I play this out over the 21 years, doing the average sales as projected by the developer, it is anticipated the aggregate border region sales collected from this operation will be $2.66 million for 21 years. As we talked about in connection with the Pandora, the question now is how to strike a balance between what the city gets and what it wants to incentivize the developer. This started out, there was a 60% discussion and negotiations have occurred, and the information I've gotten from the city staff and the finance area is that it could do a 65% allocation for the developer, 35% to the city. You can see I'm at line 38 now. At line 30, or in that box there, starting on line 38, you can see the projections of revenue generated between the city and what's allocated to the developer. Specifically, in year one, assuming sales are at $2.5 million, the city will receive $36,000 of the border region. The developer will receive $67,000 of that. I have the city total amount, which includes the local option and the property taxes on the left-hand column there for year one, identified in cell B40. If you look at year 21 on line 43, on line 43, you will see that the balance is struck essentially equal for the developer and the city. The developer would receive $1.73 million for 21 years of border region taxes generated, provided that he operates it at what he represents will be the operation revenue of $2.5 million and increasing around 2.9 to 3% annually. The city of border region will receive $930,000, but for a total of 1.8 when you factor in the property taxes as well as the local option. As we talked about with Pandora, with the introduction of the border region into this community, the city has taken out bonds. I don't know the exact amount, but I want to say, members, it's somewhere around 17 or 18 million in total bonds to help cover the cost for the infrastructural improvements that you're seeing in the city. The border region money that's generated annually within the district is used to service the debt in connection with those costs. So the finance committee has evaluated what the property is going to generate. It's also evaluated what it's going to be losing. The old Portofinos, I think somewhere in the neighborhood had a baseline, give or take, of around $20,000 to $30,000. There won't be, well, at least as far as we know, there's nothing off. Once Portofino leaves nothing will be operating there. So that the city will take that hit on that. The new property has a zero baseline, and so the revenues reflected on the box starting on line 38 reflect what the actual amounts will be. And under the 35-65 split, the developer would receive 1.7, and the city would receive 930 of the border region for a total of 1.8 million. Again, as we talked about, the intent of the border region is to incentivize in an effort to try to reimburse developers for a percentage of their investment. In this case, we asked the developer to provide us what the estimated investment cost for this. On the tab at the bottom of this spreadsheet labeled expenses, I have the total amount from the developer was just over $2 million. And so if you take $2 million as the denominator, and in the numerator, you put the 1.7 million, which reflects the 65% of the border region that will be allocated to the developer over 21 years, then the percentage of reimbursement comes out roughly to be 84.9% for the developer. So they will receive approximately 84.9% back for their investment in connection with this development. It's a good development. This is one that's going to be a win for both parties. And I think the city's excited to have this. Are there any questions from the members?
Can I say something?
Yes, of course you can.
Number one, even though I don't live in East Ridge right now, I'm homegrown East Ridge boy, and it very much hurts my feelings. And I've considered scrapping this deal because of, and I'm very proud that Pandora Motorsports is coming to East Ridge. Everything we can get in East Ridge only helps the city. But to give hometown boy 65%, you give Champies 70%. That just doesn't sit well with me personally, with everything that I've done for the city of East Ridge. I mean, Honda Sports is out there. I worked with them for a little over a year. And finally, they made the decision to come out there. And I've got a car wash going in right there at the corner of San Jaci and Ringo Road. And I'm working with Racetrack to bring them down at the interchange. It very much is a slap in the face to me for y'all to sit there and offer me 65%. So you can approve it or you don't approve it. I asked for 75%. I'd be happy with 70%, but I'll be very honest with all of you. And I've told the mayor and the attorney this today. I'm not happy with 65%. It's a slap in the face to me. Thank you.
Emerson, I appreciate everything that you've done for the city. You've been a staple of this community for a long time. And I think that the difficulty to understand and to kind of wrap our head around is when we're talking about the 65 and 35 versus the 85% return. So that only leaves a 15% out-of-pocket expense for the development. And that's kind of, I think, where we looked at the focus is, it's the idea is not to pay generally 100% for the development cost, but we're at, even though it's a 65-35, we're still at 84.9% return, which could change if projections are lower than anticipated. Those numbers.
Well, there's no question the projections hopefully will be lower than projected, and that is that most of you are familiar with Farm to Fork restaurant down in Ringo on Battlefield Parkway. I put that restaurant in there and moved him from a area downtown on the interstate down there, and he went from roughly $1 million to 4.23 million a year. We projected on that he would do about 2.5 million. I really feel, I projected with Portofino's that their business will at least double. I think it will do better than that, but I didn't want to present something to the city that would be a whole lot less. You know, if you get in there, and who knows what this virus is going to do. You know, I'm having to come out of pocket with this. The banks is not wanting to finance hotels or restaurants at this point. So I've got a couple of banks looking at it, but there's not a lot of hope that'll happen. So, you know, it'd be real easy for me to walk away from this deal, to be very honest with you. I've spent a lot of money getting it to this point, but, you know, I still feel that the city should give me 70%.
Let me ask this question. What would be the difference? I mean, you're talking about 5% more, right? So, Mark,
Yes,
what?
we are talking about 5% more, Ruth, but we're also in consideration of, I mean, we do hope and anticipate that something will replace the Portofinos, which will be an automatic net loss of 30% or $30,000 to the city annually if nothing goes in there. So if it gets torn down or whatever the case may be, I don't know what that property owner has in mind. But as Mr. Russell stated, if using the other restaurant that he's involved with Farm to Fork, there was $1 million to $2 million that they thought, and they went to $4 million. So the 84% recovery, the 85% recovery would move to a 95% recovery. So it only encourages them to actually increase sales and bring more, and then that would allow them, it would allow that return to continue to grow.
Yeah.
So the growth opportunity is still there.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Russell?
Oh, well, Ruth, as I've noticed you and I've told Mark that I would not vote on this because of my long relationship with Emerson that goes back to the early 80s. I've been associated with him and his family for almost 40 years, and I would be remiss to vote on this, but I can tell you that I know I've discussed this with Emerson just a little bit, and I know how he feels about it. And I know I started practicing law in East Ridge in 1982, and that's when I ran into Emerson out there, and he brought me over to the old hardware store over there, and he was running a security business over there, and helped me get started. And he's just been a real boon to East Ridge over the years. His daddy, and he founded the Pachyderm Club here in Chattanooga, and have been staunch supporters of a number of political candidates on both sides of the fence. Primarily, of course, with the Pachyderm Club, that's been a Republican, but he's helped numerous politicians. The sheriff is in office because of him. He helped him get elected, and he's done so much for East Ridge and helped build East Ridge. His daddy was a big pioneer of East Ridge, helped run East Ridge. And the Honda Sports is coming into a building that he developed and built up, made it an attractive property for East Ridge. He had the bank, the old United Bank. He kept that alive long enough for it to become a continued a valuable piece of property for East Ridge, and just a number of other projects and everything. So I would ask, any consideration that could be given to him on this deal. I'm sure he's cutting the numbers pretty tight, and he knows where the money is. And if the banks won't come in, he's sticking his neck out. And if it's at all possible to accommodate him on that, I would support that. So that's all I got to say. But his family's been been a real help to East Ridge over the years.
Can I ask a question just to clarify? If I'm reading this right, Mark, and you might can tell me if I'm not, but percentages aside, we're literally talking about roughly just about $5,000 a year, right?
Let me run the math on it real quickly, and I can do that for you. Because
While he's done that, I just want to say, it's not the money to me.
all right, let me make an observation. It comes out to about, on the first year, 5,000. What's not factored in here, that the information I got from the city, is the loss of the operations at its current location. The city will have to come up with $30,000 annually for the loss in the baseline that it sustains. That was what I understood from the staff as to why that loss that the city will have to absorb was going to be the 65%. That, coupled with the ratio, the return on the investment is at 85%. That would be the highest return on investment that any other developer received. If it's the 70% that Mr. Russell is, if he says it's the slap in the face, my point would be the focus is, the purpose of the act is to help reimburse developers. In this case, the reimbursement rate is 85%. Other reimbursements don't reach that. Most are in the 72 to 73%. That's the information I'm getting from the staff of the city.
And by no means is this a judge of character. I mean, Emerson is respected throughout this community, and you can't go anywhere that somebody doesn't know who Emerson Russell is. So we have no doubt that this will be a tremendous project, tremendous asset, and having him as not only a community partner, but a business partner. And we really want to see this go through. What a lot of the board members don't understand, coming from the city side of it. Mark can talk about bonds and issues that we have out there and for debt service. And that is what we use this for, is debt service. This isn't a revolving account for the city just to use, but we already know projects that we have to plan in the future based on every single thing, every single agreement that comes to the table, because we don't want to take any more funds away from any other lines to help pay for public infrastructure upgrades, build new roads, things that have to happen to continue, because we're on a 5-year window. We had a 5 to 7 year window left to make this happen. So we're trying to capitalize as much as we can. And we did start at 60 and made it to 65. And that's what kind of got us to that, we're right there at that 85% return, which is, if you look at some of the other, even the chain restaurants that we've had 35% and 41%. And right now we're at 84.9%. So the higher we continue to go, the more precedent that we set for us to negotiate in the future. And this is strictly business.
I will tell you, I was asked to run one table if the 2.5 million changes to 2.8 million. And if you've got your spreadsheet, you can navigate, you can run that number by changing year 1 to 2.8 million. If it does operate the way the farm to fork has, which I had down, went from 1 million to 4.3, this project, if it in fact produces the way Mr. Russell's businesses do, which is profitable and highly successful, this project will likely be paid back prior to 21 years at the 35/65 rate. He would be the first developer to get fully paid back, reimbursed prior to the expiration, and probably even the first developer to get paid back in total. If you run it at $2.8 million and increase it 2 or 3% thereafter, just at 2.8, the developer would get $1.94 million back on his 2 million. So he would end up 60,000 short if he produces 2.8 million. If he produces at 3 million, again, remember that the only cap is the expenses, that is the investment. If he produces at 3 million a year, he will get paid back 100%. And that, again, that is the purpose of the Board of Regents, is to reimburse. That's why the allocation came out at 65-35%.
Well, from what I'm hearing, I think Emerson is upset because we would offer someone outside the city some more of a percentage than him, who's done an awful lot for City of East Ridge and actually the county. And I'm torn myself because I think whatever Emerson does, it seems like it's very successful what he does. Now, we offered Champies the 70-30, right?
Yep.
Yes.
What was the justification for that?
I'm pulling up that spreadsheet, and the justification for that project, and I'm going to pull out my notes from that meeting, is essentially the cost. Here, I've got that. The cost for this development was around $6 million for this project.
Okay.
The projections are, I've got it here. The projections were at this, when it was developed, was $5.9 million, $8 million, actually. It was around $8 million. We pulled some of those out that we didn't count, and it came down to around $6.2 million for the estimated cost. The estimated annual sales started at 3.2 million for a total of 8.2 million of Board of Regents generated funds. So at 8.2 million for the generated funds, the city gave 70% because, again, the intent was to try to incentivize and reimburse the developer for the development cost. Here, just running the math on it right here. You had the development cost, give or take, well, they gave 8, but they essentially allowed, let me look right here. They allowed around 7 million of those. So if you take the math and you do the 5.4 and you divide that by 7, you get a 77%. So the Champions only got a 77% return on its investment, is what Champions got.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, I'm sorry, Ruth, can I speak real quick?
Sure.
It's Chris, I'm sorry. The big thing here is the fact of everyone looks at the 60, 70, 80, 90%. The whole purpose of these spreadsheets, which Mark and Kenny are laying out, is, like they said, the reimbursement to the developer. We do the formulas over the 20 years to see what the impact will be at the end of the Board of Regents Act. So when massaging these numbers, we got them all the way where he's going to get all but 15% of his investment back. That's the number we look at, the 15, not the 60, 70, 80, 90. Everyone seems to go for those thinking, oh, I want a higher number than this guy. I want a higher number than this guy. No offense to you, Mr. Russell, because I really appreciate what you're doing for us. But it's not that number to look at. It's the percentage on the back end. Well, I'm only having to, worry about 15% of my cost as opposed to 22% of my cost or anything else. So that 15 is the real important number here. Thank you.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask Emerson, the 85% return, That's good. Or is that satisfactory to you?
Well, it's not so much that, Ruth, as it is, I know you gave Bass Pro a whole lot more money than that, and I
Well, you know, we had
understand
to do that.
and I'm very proud that Bass Pro came in, because that's what really spearheaded to bring East Ridge back on the map. It had tremendously gone downhill over the last 20 plus years, but to me, this is money that you've given out, and you give. Everybody talks about the bottom line. The percentages is based off of if Champions had only spent about $3 million, rather than what they're spending right now, they would have been getting back a whole lot more money too. So it's to give Champions 70%, it's not the money to me. It's a slap in the face to me that I'm a hometown boy, and you give Champions 70%, and you're giving me 65%. And it's like the question was asked, you're only talking about $5,000 a year. That's nothing really. I'm paying $25,000 a month in alimony. And I could move Portofinas somewhere else. I could take them to another town, but that's not it. I care about East Ridge. I love East Ridge, and I just want East Ridge to be fair with me and with everything that I'm trying to do for East Ridge at this time. The car lot won't be, not the car lot, the car wash won't be getting any Board of Regents money because they don't charge sales tax, but you'll be cleaning up an area there at San Jaci, that whole block right there where the gun shop is, down to the barber shop. You'll be cleaning up that whole block down there and having a beautiful complex there that I helped put one just like this over on Battlefield Parkway. And, so all I'm asking is to be treated as equal, not any better, but the same percentages as what Champions got. That's all I'm asking for. So any consideration y'all can give me, and thank you, Estes, for those kind words, but I just wanted to feel like that y'all really do appreciate what I do in East Ridge, and to me, giving me 65%. Pandora's never done anything in East Ridge that I'm aware of, but I have. Champions has never done anything in East Ridge. They're doing a lot in there right now, but they've also killed several of the other restaurants around there. So, you're going to be losing sales tax dollars from several of the other businesses there also. So there's a lot of things to consider, I think, and but I'm just asking for y'all to consider it. Whatever y'all consider, then I'll either have to live with it or scrap the project.
Well, this looks like a great, I love Portofino's. We went there last night to eat. And this looks like a great building here that you have proposed. I was going to ask.
It's 8,000 square feet, and farm.
And how many will it seat?
I forget the total number. It'll seat a good probably 100, 150 people.
Oh wow, a lot bigger than it.
But it's like the restaurant. That building alone is going to cost me, just the building, double, and it's 8,000 square feet of what Farm to Fork cost me because it's 2-story, and the lot's not big enough to put a one level building in.
Does it have a will it have sufficient parking? And
Yeah.
can you get out like on Slater back there?
Yes, ma'am.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that we might want to consider when we're looking at this particular deal is the fact that we're in the middle of this darn old pandemic, and like Emerson has noted, these banks aren't going to go out here and put any money out. So on taking a risk, Emerson's willing to take a risk. Maybe if we up this percentage, maybe give him so that he gets 100% of his investment out. Maybe it will encourage other people to come in because we're looking at a long-term financial impact of this pandemic, and to get a high-profile restaurant to come in. There's a couple of others out there that we desperately need out there. We could use an Applebee's or something like that out there, and if we lay the carrot out, maybe we can get some more restaurant activity. That's one thing that Exit 1 really doesn't have right now, and that it needs. It got Tampy's, but it hasn't got any of the other major eateries. So that's something to consider. You tell them we'll try to get you or work to get you while we're in this economic morass, close to your costs, to come if you're in the restaurant business, to come back out here. So just a thought, but it's something to think about, something to consider in this deal, and it might be good for us down the road. We're running out of years here for this program, and we need to get them in here as much as we can.
And I agree with you, Mr. Powell. And that's what we do on a daily basis is try to weigh the options of what's the best fit, how to make this work, and the longevity of the program to be able for us to provide, because everyone that comes in over time needs something. It's either we have to add manpower, we have to add staffing, we have to have sanitation, there's roads, there's a number of things that we still have to do. And generally speaking, it's rare that we don't sit down with a developer and the first thing that they want is the same deal that was provided to Exit 1. It's 100%. We want 100%. Everybody wants 100% because that was the initial investment and the precedent was set. However, we're able to articulate the reason why that took place. So now the higher that right now we're at 85% with the possibility of a return of 99 to 100%. From the city standpoint, that's the numbers that we ran, and that's what we're presenting as a recommendation.
Yeah, and I'll just say from the standpoint of the bank, he's right. Banks are tight right now. We're in the middle of a $9.7 million project in East Ridge, but our issue was not 5% of reimbursement, which I do understand that we're bumping it from the 60. It says the 65, but what we had was actually sales projections, because the bank doesn't want to own a building that has a stepped up basis if there's no production of revenue, because then they own a too expensive building. So what really matters is the sales and the overall growth of East Ridge. So I think it's a great thing to continue getting businesses that will attract more people here. I have no doubt that Emerson has a track record where he'll exceed the projected sales here. And I think it's great that they went from the 60 to 65. So I understand the total reimbursement. I went through that number. We're definitely not getting back that percentage for 9.7, but we believe that it's a great thing to be located in that area. And I'm happy to make a motion whenever we're ready.
Okay.
The current sales for Portofino's has dropped 50%, so you're not getting the same sales tax from them
Right.
that you was getting just because of this virus.
For
So
sure,
I don't
absolutely.
know, I don't know that they're going to be able to continue. That building's pretty tired.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
Okay. I hope, Emerson, I hope that you will build this restaurant because it looks like it'd be beautiful, and I know it'd be successful. Does anyone have any other questions before we take a vote? Okay, do I have a motion? Now what we're doing is we'll make a motion to approve the 65-35 and split and the agreement. So we'll need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Casey, and
Hey,
I
Ruth,
have-
can I get one other quick clarification? I'm sorry.
Let's go ahead and get the second, Danny, and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
I second it.
who did that?
I second it.
Okay, Lee.
Lee.
Okay, now, Danny.
I
any questions?
apologize for butting in. I just want to be really clear on the only option on the table to us tonight is to approve or turn down the 65-35 split. We're not in a position to change that, correct?
That the city's that's what the city's recommendation. We started at 60 through negotiations, and the city's stance and recommendation is the 65-35 split with a minimum based on projections of an 85%.
I just want to be sure of what I'm voting on. I'm not voting against a different split because that's not on the table.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure of that.
Okay.
Can another motion be made for a 70-30 split?
Well, this one would have to be voted on.
Right now from parliamentary procedure, we have a motion and a second for the 35-65 splits. That is on the table for voting right now. If there's another motion out there to amend it, that can occur, but I have not heard that yet. But where we sit right now is there's a motion for a first and a second to consider what's on the table right now, the 35-65 split.
Any other questions? Okay, Janet, I'll need a roll call on this, or Kenny, whoever's doing it.
Board Member City,
My family is an old pioneer family of East Ridge, and I've known Emerson for years, and I appreciate so much what he's done for East Ridge, but I've got to vote no on this.
Board Member Cock,
I'm abstained.
He's abstaining.
Board Member Lance,
Yes.
Board Member Penley,
His mute button's off, I guess.
he's dropped.
He's dropped?
Yeah, he dropped off a minute ago.
Board Member Ramey,
Yes.
Board Member Tuggle,
Yes.
Chairperson Brawley.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes and will now be presented to City Council.
Both of these will go to City Council. The City Council meeting is Thursday, September 10, at which point both of these development projects will go before City Council for final consideration and approval.
Okay, does anyone have anything else to bring before the board? If not, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you all for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.